Welcome back to another episode of the Hunt Lift Eat podcast, brought to you by Hunt Lift Eat Official on Instagram. Carter and Kerri back in the recording dungeon. We're back in the sticks, Kerri.
Yeah, man. Excited. It's been a minute.
It has. We made a big push over the holidays and then got to take a little hiatus, and now we're back before that bank disappears, man.
Yeah. I'm excited about this guest, man. It's like I was telling you before we started, man, we had that nasty winter storm that kind of rolled through the Midwest right before you guys got yours.
Yep.
And dude, it tore so many, like all the trees on my property are missing massive limbs, like just massive limbs falling down. I had one about the size of my torso come down and took out a bunch of lines. One happened to be the line for my internet.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sitting without it. Luckily, I didn't lose power, man, but I didn't have internet for a couple of days. No big deal, right? But Spectrum sends out their dude, man, and I walk out there, and Spectrum workers got his phone in his pocket on speakerphone, man, and he's talking to somebody about his new bow build and hunting and all this other stuff. And I'm like, all right, bud. Yep. I'm like,
oh yeah,
I think I like this guy. What's up? You fix my internet, You'll be all right. And
awesome.
we got
what we first started talking about. It was arrow builds, it was broadheads, it was what are you shooting, what are you doing?
So for the guy who had his appointment after me, I'm sorry for the delay because we spent quite a bit of time talking about bow setups and arrow builds and all that. But yeah, man, the guy has an incredible story, and he's got some he's done some incredible things, and he's got some big ideas for the future, man. So I was like, dude, you got to stop talking because I'm putting you on the podcast. Let's do this.
Yeah, man. So I guess without further ado, Scott Jernigan coming at us from the great state of Kentucky, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Man, it's an honor. It's a pleasure. And that was a really cold morning. That morning was, I think when I threw my ladder that morning, it was like I think my hand stuck to the rung. And when I pulled it off, it was like you could hear your hand like unstick. But man, we started talking, and I was like, man, this guy's the real deal. Like I didn't know who you were and never had met you before. And we started talking about arrow builds, and you were like, well, I shoot this and I shoot that. And then when you opened up your broadhead case, it was like, I like this guy. I like this guy. And
the real deal is a good way to describe Kerri.
Wow.
And I guess, with my background in health, when I meet people, I'm a very open person, very much a people person. And, meeting Kerri, you could just tell. It's like there's a connection here. I like this guy a lot. He seems a lot like me. And, I've had kidney disease since I was born. I was born with hydronephrosis, which is basically a piece of skin that blocks the ureter. And what happens is it backs up the kidneys to where they don't function. Near-death experiences pretty much since I was born. Had my first transplant when I was 9, got it from my dad. Huge blessing. The funny part is, I was always hunting, even with, catheter bags in, man. My dad would load me up in the truck and we're hunting.
Yeah.
And very unique way of hunting. I'm from the panhandle of Florida. Always hunted Eglin Air Force Base. And so we dog hunt, and that's a little bit different. And it's one of the few, it kind of was passed down from generation to generation. And my dad would always just load me up, but I can remember being more excited as a kid for that opening day than Christmas. Like nothing compared.
Yeah.
We're out there, and I remember having a breakdown 410, and my dad shot a deer down one day, and I think I was 5 or 6 years old, and he said, come out here, bud. And he said, finish this sucker off. And, I walked up there, and I got to experience that. And so I've had hunting in my family and in my life since I was born. And my dad has always said, he said, son, if you're not hunting, something's wrong. I know something's wrong if you're not hunting.
Yeah.
And so I got my first transplant when I was 9. And it lasted about right at 23 years. And then things just took a turn for the worse. It's probably a small way to put it. In 1 week, I pretty much lost everything. Ended up having to go on dialysis. Ended up, wife decided to move on, and so it was just like there was a few months of a really, really dark place, and dialysis, I had never been on it as a kid. Really blessed to never be on it, and which is one of the reasons why my heart is very much for pediatric patients that are on dialysis and helping young people, and which is something I'm going to get into later. It's really a dream of mine to really just help, even if I have to start out just being a volunteer on special hunts, youth hunts or special need hunts, And but I was in a crazy place, man, and I remember I was in so you have hemodialysis where you go 3 times a week, right? And you go to the facility, and your blood's going in and out, and I remember looking around, I was like, man, I can't do this. Like this ain't gonna work. I've got to live, And I'm sitting there thinking, the things running through your mind when you're literally in complete survival mode. And the first thing that came to my mind is I got to figure out how to hunt, and I can't hunt like this. So they have a way to do dialysis, which is called peritoneal, and it's where you have a machine and you have fluid that goes into the peritoneal lining of your stomach, and it's just fluid, and that glucose solution draws all the fluid off and keeps filtering. The kicker is you have to be on it 10 hours a night. And but I was like, I can make this work. I was like, this will work. So we went that route. And I'll never forget, man, I got on that, and I was like, hunting season was coming up. I'd never hunted out of state. I've always hunted in Florida. And I watched an episode of the THP, and I was like, wait a second. With Onyx, I can go hunt public land, and like, you know what I mean? I can find I can e-scout. I was like, man, I know how to hunt. This is going to be fun. Like, you're going to give me access to know where I'm on what property. I was like, it was like a whole new world opened up. Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm sitting here on, near death, surviving on dialysis. And I just, I'll never forget the first trip. And you guys are going to laugh because this is like when you really know you have no experience in backcountry anything. The first trip, I was like, I'm going to take a trip to Western Kentucky, and I'm going to go bow hunt. And I found a piece of public. So I pack all my dialysis bags up. I pack all my machine up. And the kicker with peritoneal, it's very dangerous because you have to be very clean because if you can get peritonitis, which is life-threatening. If you have peritonitis, you got to be rushed to the ER. None of this is going through my mind at this point in time. None of it. I'm like, I grab my bow, I grab my Summit climber. My hemoglobin levels are like 8, I grab everything, throw it in the truck. I had an old Sequoia at the time, and I just take off. And my mom's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm gone." I take off. I go to Western Kentucky, and I had 3 days. And I get up there, and I didn't even know where I was going to stay. I found a hotel, and it was, I'm not even going to name the hotel, but it was bad.
A classic Western Kentucky hotel.
Oh my gosh, it was terrible. It was so bad. I went to Walmart, got some sheets, came back home, that kind of thing, and I cleaned off everything because at this point I'm like, okay, I got to sanitize, because I got to clean all the bags up. So I do that. So the first hunt, I pull up to this place. I'm like, I'll probably find some scrapes out here. I was like, that's a good thicket, just looking at the terrain. So I go out there and I find some scrapes. And I realize that there's no trees to put a summit on. So at this point, I'm like, where I want to hunt, like right there is the spot to hunt. Wind's going to be coming from here. I got cross trails here. I got scrapes here. I got a thicket here. I'm like, I'm not, that's the tree I need to be in. So I had a lone wolf lock on. So I took the lock on out there with a dialysis cord. And the funny thing is, man, is I taped that thing so much that day because I did think, like, if I fall out of this with my saddle, like, this is bad. It ripped the cord out. And so I hang the stand. And that afternoon, I was like, it's going to be a good afternoon. And I went and sat in that stand, and man, a really nice 9-point comes walking by, but it was so stinking thick, which is the story of Kentucky. Anybody that's bow hunted in Kentucky, it's like you're going to have 100 encounters that you had no shot.
Right.
And that Kerri can attest. We've talked about this. And so I'm sitting there full draw and I have no shot, but my heart, like, I forgot. Everything about what I was going through was out the window in that moment. I was like, in a good way. Yeah. It was like, man, this is where I'm alive, And so that hunting trip is what really, really sparked something in me to start hunting on public land in other states, and specifically Kentucky. And kind of a little crazy story. That same year, I did the same thing and went to some family land in Alabama. So my mom's family is from Western Alabama. When we get up there, same thing, dialysis bags and all. And I go to do dialysis. We wanted to hunt this one extra day, my uncle and I. And I go to do dialysis that night, and I'm like trying to get on early, and the machine's stopping. So what happens is those bags, when you unscrew the cap, they're supposed to have a pre-made hole in that bag. Well, it was not there. So I'm like, I'm stuck. Like, I either got to drive home right now, or I got to figure out how to make this work. So we came up with a crazy plan that you should probably never do. And I took a lighter and I found a sewing needle and I heated that. I just got it as hot as I could, and I just popped it like that. Dialysis bag worked, and I had one of the most memorable hunting experiences the next morning on family land. Didn't kill one. I had a really nice 8-point, but he had one horn. And with that, he was probably a good 150-inch deer,
wow.
But he just had one horn. And I got to watch him all day, and it was, but it taught me something about hunting that I don't know that I would have gotten any other way. And it was to enjoy every moment.
Mm.
And whether you kill, whether you don't kill, because the group of guys that I grew up with, man, it's kill. It's all about killing. And
yeah.
I'm blessed to have been able to grow up with people who knew what they were doing, and that's what they love to do. But it taught me how to enjoy life, And then I went to another piece of public, and I was still on dialysis that next year, and when this is a special piece of land to me, and I still hunt it. I probably hunt it more than anything else, than any other public land, because I'll never forget when I was there, and one of my really good friends found this piece of public. Like, man, we can get in there. It's a 3-mile hike. And I'm sitting there on dialysis, and it's a cornfield, and the road wasn't cut through the middle of the cornfields, and you're walking through and so when you're walking around the stalks, you got these giant stalks that are sticking up, and it's like, man, I cannot trip. I got 10 pounds of fluid in my stomach. If I trip, this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
But it just didn't. The love for hunting didn't matter. I was getting back there no matter what, man. And it's a funny story because that year I had the most amazing encounters with deer. I walked up on 2 giants fighting, Ended up missing the shot, but because when they were fighting, I didn't know what to do, and I'd never seen anything like that. Dude, it was. I mean, they were warring, and it was like baseball bats just nailing each other. And I was like, knowing what I know now, though, I would have probably just run straight to them. But at the time, I didn't know what to do. And I encountered like 7 bucks on the ground that morning in a matter of 2 hours. And, it was a memorable time. But I'll never forget, I was in this tree, and it was like something inside said, "You're going to move to Kentucky. Like, you're going to live here." And uh, I'm a very big faith person. Um, I've always kept a prayer life, always kept, meditate in the mornings. It's something I still do. And I would call that that central spirit that's speaking to you, like, man, you got to move here. And um, so I went home that year, and this was all during COVID too, by the way. And so I went home and started to approach turkey season. And it was about, I think it was April of 2022. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, this is 2.5 years in. You have a lot of time to think when you're driving around in the woods. And it's just 2.5 years in, and man, like, how long can I keep doing this? I'm pushing, I'm fighting. And I'll never forget, I had a phone call from UAB. So UAB is where I had my first transplant, and it's where I always wanted to get the next one, but never. COVID really messed a lot of that up, and they just didn't. They put a halt on getting anybody in new, and they called me up one day, and they're like, "Hey, we have you second on the list. Can you be ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't even know I was in your program, but thanks." Like, that was the call I got, and so I I'm sitting there and I pack my bags. And then they called back about an hour later and said, "Hey, the guy in front of you was a perfect match." And it's very rare. I don't know how much about transplants people know, but it's harder every time you have a transplant, it's harder to get the next one because of antibodies. So antibodies in the system build up. The crazy thing is, the first transplant I had was from my dad, and everybody in my family, I'm blessed to have an amazing family, and they all got tested for the second one. And they were a perfect match, if not for the antibodies that had built up for my dad's first kidney.
Gotcha.
So it's harder to get that second kidney. And they called me up. I was sitting there, I had my bag packed, and my mom's like, at this point, I'm living with my parents. Thankfully, because I would have definitely been homeless if not that. And I have my bag packed in the hallway. My mom comes about a week later. She's like, "Hey, are you going to leave that in the hallway?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I was like, "Absolutely, I'm leaving that in the hallway because it's about to happen. I'm about to get a second chance. I'm about to get a new life." And dude, probably 30 minutes after that, I get a phone call. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. No, it's 1 in the afternoon, and I get a phone call from UAB, and they say, "Hey, we have you on a kidney. We need you here by 5 in the afternoon." So we just jump in the truck, man, and we're headed. We got pulled over by a state trooper. My dad's doing like 90 and a 60, and state trooper comes up there to the door, and Dad says, "Hey, I'm taking my son." You just have to know. He's like, "I'm taking my son to get a kidney." He said, "You gonna write me a ticket or not?" And he said, "No, y'all go ahead, just be safe." And so we got on, you know what I mean? He was like, "I ain't dealing with this. I'm about to leave. Write me a ticket real fast, or we're moving on. I got to be there by 5." And got up there. Man, shout out to UAB and that staff. It was flawless. Um, and, this is where the health thing for me really kicks in. Um, I was trying to go to the gym before, but your hemoglobin's a 7 or an 8. You don't have enough stamina to do anything.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget. I was like, okay, I'm going carnivore. I'm going. I'm gonna invest in my health. You know, and I'm sitting there because you have to be in Birmingham or wherever you have to be in that city for at least a month. So you have a lot of time to think. And so I'm thinking about like, okay, this is the life I'm going to lead. And that's where the dreams of helping others start to come up. And um, realizing that your health and taking care of yourself is a way to say thank you.
Mm.
It's a way to say thank you um, for allowing me a second chance.
Yep.
And a lot of times, a lot of that time in Birmingham, it's where I solidified the decision to move to Kentucky. And within a month, I'll say this. So I start dieting. I start trying to work out. What I was doing was going on hikes because I couldn't lift over a certain amount of weight.
Right.
So I'm on these trails in Florida. And if you're in Georgia, you know how the heat gets in the South. So I'm just sweating, just let's go for it. Going on these trail hikes every day, sometimes twice a day, putting stuff in my pack to try to, I'm pushing the boundaries of what I'm supposed to do inside of these 3 months. And so I end up just getting healthier and healthier. And then one day, like probably a month out, because I started taking care of my vitamins and I was eating carnivore. Mostly what I was eating was fish or deer, and sometimes steak if I didn't have deer, but mostly venison is what I was eating. Man, I was off all of my mineral medicines within a month.
That's fantastic.
Okay. And I tell that to a lot of people because it's like most people stay on that about 4 months to 5 months after your transplant. And I just continued to get healthier and healthier. And about 3 months in, I was like, all right, I'm moving to Kentucky. And had a little mini U-Haul in my Sequoia packed up. And I moved up here with one of my really good friends and stayed on his couch in a trailer with 5 kids and it for about a month. And it was fun. We had a good time. We had some of the most memorable times. Like you were saying that when you moved up here, Kerri, you moved in the middle of hunting season.
Yeah.
It was like mid-October for me too, and so it was kind of eating at me, because I'm trying to get settled in, but I'm ready to hunt and I'm healthy now. So it's like, oh man, let's go. And I killed a deer that year, but I didn't get to hunt a lot on public. But it was one of those things. A deer had come up behind his trailer, and he's like, "Man, go out there and kill that deer." He's like, you walk around the side of it, and she walked around, but she busted me when I drew back. She picked her head up. Well, she pitched out about 30 yards, and I pretty much had to shoot her in. I pretty much had to shoot her in the back hip to get a double lung shot because she was facing away. And I did. I was like, that's where this arrow is going to pass through. Pulled the trigger. She goes off about 20 yards. Passed right through the back hip, right through the double lung. And I was sitting there, and I said, he's like, man, there's no way you killed that deer. I was like, she's dead. I promise you. So we went out there. We started walking out there, and sure enough, she's like right next to a pine tree, and we quartered her up right there, and got to put her on the grill, and so that was a very memorable moment, And I think going through hardships, when you come out the other side in a thankful way, and your mind is set to improve your life, every stinking memory is like ingrained. That it's just a doe, but I mean, that was as much fun as the buck I killed this year, if not more, because it was a crazy hard shot, and that's one thing I like to do in archery. I try to challenge myself. Um, that's fun, but yeah, so that's how I ended up where I am now, and getting to meet Kerri is super cool, and talking hunting in Kentucky, which has been fun because there's a lot of deer, and coming from Florida, it's it's relaxing, honestly, and refreshing because, like you were talking about, Kerri, it was like there's trails everywhere. It's like there's not a trail in Florida. It's just it's not a
It's just
trail.
like,
It's like
it's just like the terrain at Bragg, man. They used to say if you can get good at hunting on Fort Bragg, which is the same type of terrain you had down there in Florida, then you can hunt anywhere. And I mean, not that I'm a great hunter because I hunted on Bragg because I never got good there. But
I think you're right. Yeah, and hunting Eglin Air Force Base is very competitive.
yep,
I learned to hunt off people there. That's
yep.
one. You hunt downwind of people there. Um, that's kind of one thing I've learned to do. And deer, there's a lot of roads. I don't know if either of you have been to Eglin,
Mhm.
but the reservation there, there's a lot of roads. It's flat land and there's a lot of roads. So I figured out that a lot of those bucks learned to lay in corners of roads where they could see traffic moving in and out. And man, I've killed more deer sitting 5 feet off a road. I've killed, and that's something I picked up from my dad. It's like, well, wherever they are, that's where we're hunting. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't have to be in the most beautiful spot,
Yep.
you know, if
Yep.
it's a thick, nasty, cut of brush, it's like that's where he's at. That's where we're hunting.
Yep.
And but yeah, it's an interesting experience to come up here and I think next year we got a lot of people that are hunting Illinois. We got a little family trip up there. That's going to be fun. So yeah, man, that's how I ended up here, and I'm just established now. So one thing I really want to do, and I like to, you know, I definitely need guidance here because I don't know how it looks, but I really want to help with youth hunts and special needs kids because I remember how it felt when I killed my first deer
Yeah.
as a kid. And Carter, do you have a hunting background from childhood, right?
I don't actually, and that's kind of what I'm thinking about here. And is your dad still around?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I didn't grow up in a hunting family. My granddad, he was the hunter from Eastern. My family's from Eastern Kentucky, and he was the hunter, but it skipped a generation. It's very much not my dad's thing, and so I didn't have the
Same.
opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
My granddad took me on my first bird hunt when I was in high school, and then I didn't have anybody because there were no deer in Eastern Kentucky when my granddad was growing up there. Now there's deer everywhere, and
It's hard to believe it.
yeah, so he didn't grow up doing that. And anyways, I got the bug. I always had the bug, right? Watching Jeremiah Johnson and all these westerns with my granddad, and I grew up in Colorado and just never had the opportunity to go out. But I got into it in college through force, made myself get into it and learn it that way. So I didn't kill my first deer till I was a freshman in college, but I remember that feeling, and it's changed my perspective because now I have two kids. I have two little girls, and you want them to have the love of the outdoors that you're talking about, that your dad had the awesome opportunity to share with you. And huge kudos to your dad for making it happen, right? Because it's so easy when you have kids. There's so many speed bumps, road bumps, and everything you do, right? Everything takes a million years to do just to get out the door. It's like just putting on some shoes, man. It's just like, oh my gosh, we just need to go to the grocery and this is taking forever. Hunting trips adds a whole nother sense of logistics to a simple task, and let alone bringing, medical equipment into the field, man. So I think that's a huge I love that attitude. Just like, we're going to do it. This is how it is, right? This is the hand we've been dealt. And I want my boy to be out and enjoy the outdoors like I do. I think that's beautiful, man. And the fact that you want to share that with other kids is a very noble cause, man. I really respect that.
Yeah, that's something that like I had like an instant connection with you on, man, because I'm kind of similar, not quite as, I don't know, drastic, I guess. I didn't have to carry my own fluids around with me going into the woods, but like I was telling you, like I got hurt towards the end of my career. I was not a hunter. Same thing with Carter. My dad didn't hunt, but my grandparents did. It skipped a generation. And so like my first year, I think I was 34, 35 for my very first year, but it changed my life. And, kind of like you, I've got disabilities and all that. And just like you, like, I've got every excuse in the book to just kind of sit on my ass and just wait to die. Right. But I'm not, right? Because I've got things I want to do. Like, I'm going to go do this. I want to hunt. I'm going to go fucking hunt. Right.
Right.
And just how you want to help those youth and younger hunters and those kids dealing with some of these, the pediatric, children dealing with some of the same issues you had. I'm trying to do the same thing with other special operators, trying to find that next phase in life, that next thing, that next passion, you know what I mean? And so that's where I felt that instant connection, because I was like, man, like we're both wanting to do something for other people, help them get the opportunities that we had, or find the passions that we have. And I think that's awesome. And I'm hoping, man, somebody who's going to listen to this podcast is going to be like, I know how to get Scott involved. Let's do this.
Yeah. And like I was telling you, when we sat down at the coffee shop, if it's nothing else but being a volunteer guide on a youth hunt, that would be so fun to me, and then, dipping my toes in it and figuring out how to do it. And while at the same time here, there's young people in our church and young people that I work with that are, wanting to hunt. And I think sharing that is one of the greatest things we could do, not only to get new hunters in the industry, because we always need new hunters.
Yeah.
But to share that with young people, it really kept me in high school. It kept me out of a lot of trouble, man. It's, I'm always in the woods. I'd rather go hunt than go to a party. If a party was gonna take away from me getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, go trailing some roads so we can put some dogs on some deer, like, that's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. So it really kept me, and especially high school was more along the lines of turkey hunting. My dad's one of the best callers that has ever been around. He all he did was spend time with turkey hunters and spend time in the woods and turkeys. I mean, he is a turkey, and it's just anybody that's turkey hunting knows what I mean by that, because people can call, but not everyone can talk the language of a turkey.
Right.
And I've been blessed to just have so many special hunts. And fun little turkey story on that is, the last year I was on dialysis, I come home from turkey season. It's actually right before I got my kidney. And Dad said, "Hey, there's a big bird. There's a bird that nobody's been able to kill." And I was like, "Well, let's go get him." And he's like, "Well," he said, it's gonna take two people." Similar to elk hunting, I hear a lot of people talk about how a caller will be back off from whoever's shooting. And when you get a really big turkey, an older turkey inside of a high pressured area like Edward, what happens is he knows the difference between a man calling and a turkey. And so it forces you to change things up. And my dad had recently got into the haint gobble call, and it's a wooden call. It's called the haint, and it is the only gobble call that honestly really sounds like a gobble from a distance. And he's really good with it. And we got in that turkey, and there was a guy up on the hill from me, and I was sitting on a low road, and the South is very thick, so you can't see anything. And I'm sitting there, and man, he goes down. He said, "I'm gonna back off here about 60 yards and do a mock fight, hens fighting, and then I'm gonna gobble at him. I'm gonna gobble at him until he's either gonna leave or he's gonna come." And he started that. He called every boss hen in that area next to us. We had boss hens walking by me, and I'm just sitting there trying to be. And sure enough, here comes that turkey. And there's a guy up on the hill trying to call him away from us, and he knew who it was, And that bird comes right down the road, and he stopped at the corner of the road. And these headphones are wanting to fall out, but he stopped at the corner of the road. I had a hen. This is where Kentucky's a lot different turkey hunting than Florida. I had a hen decoy. He saw that decoy and he stopped behind a tree. He didn't move for probably 20 minutes. He didn't gobble. His hens went on by, and I said, "I'm going to have to shoot him right through that tree. Like, that's the only way this is going to work." And he saw that hen, and he kept looking at her, and he kept looking at her, and then he turned his head, and he was about to go away from me because he knew there was something wrong. I shot right through the tree and ended up getting him. And the guy who was trying to call him, it's funny, we get back to the truck, he drives up there to see who it was, and then he got mad and did a donut and left. So that was a fun hunt.
That's awesome.
Dude, this spring, man, we need to get together. I've got to kill a turkey. I've yet to kill a turkey.
It's an amazing experience, man.
It is.
You get a bird that comes up next to you and gobbles right in your face. It's like, it might be more fun than deer hunting to me. And I love deer hunting.
I don't know. We got to get me on one before I make that decision.
It's hard to beat, man.
Yeah, sure.
When they scream in your face, man, it's nothing like it.
Yeah.
So, the first one I ever called by myself, because I'd always relied on my dad. And when I was 16, I went out by myself. And the first one, it was a burn, because they burn a lot down there. And, they can see for a long ways, so you can't get up close to them. And I'm sitting there, and I'm calling this turkey, and I break out both calls. I'm like, okay, we're going to make it sound like there's two hens here. And then it started clucking a little bit. And he just shut up. He had gobbled a lot, and then he stopped talking. And I just sat there. And I remember Dad saying, "Hey, sometimes when they do that, just sit there for about 20 minutes." And I sat there, and I was just like, that doubt. Carter, you probably know this. That doubt starts to creep in. Like, where did he go?
Every
He
time.
was answering every time. Where did he go? All of a sudden, I hear him spit and drum right behind me. Like, I couldn't move. He spit and drum right behind me. He walks by me, and he walks. I'm like, I can't even pull my gun to him. Like, this is not a good situation. He's gonna walk over this crest, and it's gonna be bad. And he walked by me, walked over the crest. I still couldn't shoot him. And when he got over the crest, I cut at him real hard with my mouth call. He gobbled. He turned around and came back, and I got to shoot him. And I was like, I don't even, that weak feeling.
Yeah.
When you're in a tree stand, you're like, and you're just totally weak. And that's how it was, that just rush, that him doing that to me, coming up behind me like that was, man, that was cool. But
yeah, man.
Shoot, man. About a month and a half.
Yeah, it's getting close, right?
Yeah.
It is. I'm excited for it. It's great hunting up here.
All these experiences you're talking about, Scott, like, hunting's cool for a lot of different reasons, right? But it's kind of the great equalizer. And, the more folks that you can expose it to, and I'm sure anybody who's a non-selfish hunter wants to share those experiences with everybody they can, right? And that's why, I kind of gravitate towards other hunters who enjoy sharing that with other folks, new folks. Cause I was a new guy at one point, and I had some very kind people take me under their wing and teach me some stuff. And, sometimes you have to learn it out by yourself too. But, kind of like Kerri was saying, everybody has every excuse in the book. And there's a lot of hunters that don't like hunting hard. And, your story and your situation kind of gives good perspective to that, man. And it's like, there really are no excuses, man. Like Kerri and I were talking about, we were recapping our season a couple of weeks ago, and I had a public land hunt on a climber, and it was all a disaster. I dropped my bow out of the stand, and then I dropped my phone, and then I was like, this is stupid. There's hunters. I can see all the other hunters on this piece of public, and I was like, I hate this, right? But and then it turned around to be awesome. I killed a good deer, but I wasn't schlepping around my dialysis machine. You know what I mean? I was just feeling sorry for myself in the moment because I was sweaty and frustrated and whatever, right? You know what I mean? And
that's the worst.
It is the worst. But I'm sure carrying around your dialysis machine isn't the greatest thing in the world either. But it's good perspective, and I don't invest my time in people or things that are what I call energy ripoffs, right? I just don't have time for that anymore. I just don't do it, right? I don't do things I don't want to do anymore. And some of the best advice I ever got was invest in good people, man. And you're a good people, Scott. And I'm glad you and Kerri got to meet over this unfortunate ice storm, man. But like, I feel reinvigorated, and like that your story and just your attitude is just like fantastic. And I think a lot of people can take away from that, right? Kerri and I have talked ad nauseum about a positive mental attitude. That's something that's really important to both of us. And like, whatever's going on, like, you better believe I'm going to be in the woods, and because that's the priority for us for a number of different reasons, not just for killing, but for the bigger picture, right? You talked about, your faith, and some of my greatest faith moments have been in the woods, right? While you're hunting, and it's hard to not believe in divine intervention when you've experienced some of those things, whether you kill or not, like you mentioned, and sharing those experiences with people. What better calling is there,
100%. It's impossible for me to not believe in divine intervention. It's not even something that,
it just is.
That's view. Yeah, it's just not there. I'm very, very intimate in that setting. A musician, always have been one of those people to pour out thanks, to be a person of gratitude and gratefulness. And
gratitude.
Yeah, man. And a part of that for me in this next, phase of my life is being able to share that with specifically younger people and young men. It's a big deal to get out there and get, and hunt. And I know there's a lot of different ways that Kerri and I talked about this, man. There's nothing better than packing in a mile or two, and going to find a deer, even if he's not the biggest buck in the area, you went and found a deer that no one else is going to kill.
Yeah.
Because you're willing to put the work in to get there to do it. And that's how I killed my deer this year. I had scouted that place, and I'd always told my cousin who hunts with me, I told him, I said, if I ever get there before daylight, I'm killing. Because previously I just, because it's an hour drive and then an hour walk in, and so your time starts to fall.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that's what happened this year. Second day out in the woods, I didn't have a lot of time to scout, and second time I went in the woods this year, it's like, this is where I'm going. I had a very narrow window. Something I wanted to ask you, Carter, about archery, and is your distance. Like, what do you prefer, especially on whitetail? Because I know you guys are hunting out west a lot, which is something I haven't done, but it is a dream. That's my next thing personally. But like, when it comes to whitetail, like, I actually prefer to get them inside of 30 yards. But I hear a lot of people, say they don't. And I'd like to, I just want to like pick your brain on that. What's your preferred range?
I gotta caveat this conversation with I'm no expert, right? I just happen to have a horseshoe this season in my back pocket, but I'm no expert. But there's a lot of guys on the Hunt Lift Eat team who I listen to very well. One thing, I'm not good at a lot of things. One thing I'm good at is I'm a good student, and worked with some people who know a lot more than I do. Worked with an archery coach who's on the Hunt Lift Eat team, Kiefer Rogers, and Dan, Bubba Reitz. They're both out. One's an elk guide, and Dan lives out in Colorado, now Wyoming. they're way more experienced. And so it was my first, I set a goal for myself in 2018 to go on at least one Western hunt every single year. And so I'm a school teacher by day. And so I work to set up enough money aside to do that every year. That was a goal that I set for myself, and I'm going to do that forever. It's like a non-negotiable for me. I have to. And so this was the first year I took my bow out west. It's been rifle before that because my confidence is a lot higher with a rifle. And like you said, it's, you know, with that logistics, you're not only driving, but you're flying, and you're there for a fixed amount of time, and tags are expensive. And like, I want as high chance of success as possible. And this year I was convinced to take my bow. I was told, if you want the full elk experience, elk bugling,
I think I listened to that podcast
and doing that kind of stuff, that's the way to do it. And I had a lot of apprehension about it because I had a very bad bow hunting season a couple of years ago. I had a bad kill on a doe, and she died. And it was not a good death. And it kind of took me out of, I took myself out of the game, out of the bow hunting game. I put myself on probation because I honestly wasn't practicing enough. I should not have released an arrow with how little I was practicing. I wasn't taking it seriously enough, I think. And so finally got back into it. But to answer your question, my range for this hunt for the elk, my furthest limit was going to be, I wanted it to be 40. Within 40 would have been ideal.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work out that way, especially
especially out there.
Yeah, the terrain we were hunting. So I was drilling at 60. I felt confident at 60. And so I backed off that, and my comfortable range was 50. And so my elk came in at 48. Everything felt great. My draw cycle and all my steps felt good. And that's kind of when, once I implemented a system, a checklist in my head with my draw cycle, my accuracy, went up immensely. So I ended up shooting my elk at 48 yards, which might as well have been 400 yards. I thought it was so far away. And that's where I was, but I was very confident, right? But here in Georgia, every deer I've killed with a bow has been 30 yards or closer, right? I killed one at 21 and one at 23 this year. Nice bucks, but like you're in a knife fight here on the East Coast a lot of times, and they're a lot closer, which is great, right? So less margin for error, but I kind of set my pins for my Western hunt, and then had to adjust them once I got back. But
I have a very similar story when it comes to what you're talking about with quitting on your archery, because I lost 4 deer in 1 month, and I put my bow down and didn't hunt for 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's when I got into some research, because not all of them were bad shots.
Right.
I was next to swamp area, and some of them were just deer's running 300 yards. He gets 300 yards. He's across the river. He crosses the river. He's on private. I'm not getting it.
Yep.
So I adjusted and did some research into arrow setup and broadheads, and landed on single bevels for penetration. But that has been the coolest journey for me, because since I started that journey and I picked up bow hunting again, the last 13 deer I've shot, I've got to watch fall.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh man, this is great. And I have the confidence to shoot them in the brisket. If you're hunting off the ground, you don't get to pick your shot.
Right.
And so just trying to find a setup that had enough force to penetrate, because I'm always aiming at the lung, whether I'm shooting in the front of the deer, back of the deer, side, quarter, right? You're always picturing that shot.
Right.
And that I don't want anything to deter that arrow from going through that. There's obviously broadheads that leave really good blood trails and stuff like that. But for me, I had to go to a setup that I was confident in, which I think is what everybody needs, in their archery.
That's the key, man. Is a lot of stuff is going to do the job, but you have to be confident in that setup. Man, I quit archery hunting multiple times every season.
Yeah. For sure. It's the dumbest thing ever. And then when it works well, you're like, this is amazing. This is so cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But Kerri knows a lot more. He nerds out on bows a lot more than I do.
That's how we started talking.
I just got a new bow. I got to go pick it up on Friday.
What are you shooting, Scott? What do you shoot?
Oh, that's funny. I've shot a Matthews for a long time. When we got into bow hunting it was in 99. It was in 2000. My dad bought a Jernigan, Matthews Jernigan, solo cam. And I kind of picked that bow up. A few years ago, I had bought, when I first moved to Kentucky, I had a V3X, and something about it I didn't like. Don't know what it was. I'm sure a lot of people have success with it, and it's great. I'm like, you know what? I don't like this. I killed 2 deer with it. I just didn't like it. I ended up selling it and going back to my adrenaline. That bow's got over 30 deer on it for me. And so it's a very light poundage bow, it's maxed out at 60, but it's super quiet. And it's, but I think I'm going to end up with a lift. It might be one of the best bows made right now, in my opinion, but everybody's got an opinion on that. So
definitely,
just the quiet, that is a big thing for me. Speed is great, but all these bows are really kind of close to the same speed now.
Yeah, that's true.
And so if I can get a bow that's as silent as that, I mean, I hear the arrow hit that when I shoot it,
Yeah.
Before I hit the bow. What did you end up with, Kerri?
The Lift X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be what I did shoot the Alpha X too from Hoyt, and I think I might like the draw cycle better.
Do you?
Yeah, where it's up front and all the weight's up front. But
Kerri gives the best advice to guys getting into bow hunting and archery, and it's, hey, go shoot all of them. Yeah, go shoot all of them, because you're right. Like, speed is very similar. Like, it's not like a Lamborghini versus like a Nissan Leaf, right? They're all like relatively similar, right? Pick up the one that you shoot the best, which is great advice for whatever you're using for literally in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's really it, man. There's not a bad bow. Like, none of the flagship bows are bad. I went and shot, I shot the new Hoyts, the new Prime, the new Matthews, the Elites. I didn't shoot this year's expedition. I shot last year's, but they just didn't have it. What else did I shoot? I shot the new Bowtex, but the Matthews just kind of like a Ford and Chevy guy, man. Like, what kind of truck do you like? They're all going to do the same thing. They're all like within just, fractions of each other.
Yep.
So
it's definitely preference.
It's definitely same thing with guns, trucks, all of it, man. Find the one that fits you.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll probably settle with a lift. I think I'm very comfortable with the Matthews. I killed my buck this year with the Adrenaline. That bow's made in 1998. Get it restrung.
Yeah.
It's solid.
Yep.
I like to get these deer inside of 30 yards up here. That's all going to change when I go out west, I'm aware. I'm not looking forward. I am, but I'm not, because I really like those close encounters in the way that I shoot one pin and kind of have it set up for that.
I'll say, like, I've seen it firsthand. You can get as close as, if you play your cards right, you can get them close. Luke had his gigantic elk at 14 yards, and that actually came to bite him because it was too close, and he ended up shooting high on it, right? So, again, you don't always get to pick your shot. That guy was coming in on a rope, and he was probably 330-inch bull. He was huge. Which is
height over bore works the same way with a bow.
Yeah, that was part of that journey when I came back to bow hunting. It's like, I've got to be as efficient as possible inside of 30 yards.
Yeah. What's on your as far as Western hunts, Scott? What's what are some?
I want to elk hunt. I really want to go after an elk with a bow.
Yeah.
That's probably number one for me.
It's like one of the most American things in the world.
How could you not want to do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? in a backcountry hunt. I love doing it. I train every day and lift, and probably going to get into the hunt lift eat training program this coming up year just for whitetail hunting.
Yeah.
But that would be my out west hunt, and then I don't know. I might go after muleys after that.
They're my favorite. They're so cool.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're so cool.
Yeah. It's prairie hunting, isn't it? Like kind of stalk. You got to get close.
Depends on where you are, man. Yeah.
Really.
Yep. Yeah, man. It's all doable. It's all doable. I'd love to be out there with you sometime, man. Help you make that dream come true.
Oh, absolutely. I would love that. The opportunity to just get out there, even if you don't kill, it's right. That experience in chasing, and, he's over here and I got to walk a mile just to cut him off of the wind. That just hearing people that I know that have done it, I'm like, oh, this sounds like something I'd love to do, and it's kind of that same motivation that got me out of the bed, when I was on dialysis to go, chase whitetails in Kentucky. And it's the same motivation that's leaning me towards going out west on a good elk hunt.
Oh, yeah.
I know Colorado's got the draw system now, so I don't think
probably doing away with their over-the-counter here soon, and they're changing their point system.
It'll come back in a few years. That's a totally different podcast, but yeah, I'm not sure where would be the best place to get your first elk hunt now.
I'll tell you.
I have no idea. When you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah, after we get off and stop the recording, I can help you put together a plan of some states to start building your points in. Because guys will be like, oh, it's a once in a lifetime hunt. And the guy my mentor for Western hunting told me, he was like, stop saying that, right? It's not once in a lifetime. You can go as much as you're willing to go. And Kerri's a good
I like
that, because Kerri will hunt anything, anywhere, all the time, right? It's just time management and doing it, right? It's not, the barrier to entry is not as steep as people think.
Yeah, for sure. And I like what you said earlier. You set that goal for yourself. You're doing a Western hunt every year.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way to approach it. You have to set that goal. You have to go, like for me this year, I've got a lot of cousins that are new into bow hunting, they had an amazing year in Illinois last year. One of them, he got to kill a really nice buck 6 yards off the ground.
Yeah.
And we're like, let's go. We want to do this as a family. So that is my goal this year. And then it's like, it's another state. And you got to have that goal.
Yep.
And so that's something that struck me. Speaking of Kerri hunting anything, anywhere, how are those squirrels treating you out here right now?
Dude, I don't even want to talk.
He's seeing all his deer now that deer season's over.
Yeah. Squirrels are there when deer season's in.
I shot over the top of a squirrel this morning. Yeah. Not having a good time with it. I'll be back out tomorrow.
Gotta keep going,
Take the 410.
Yeah. That's what I need to do, man. Start bringing a shotgun. Stop trying to hit a tiny animal with a tiny bullet. But
they're elusive this time of year. It's like you can't, I'm a big squirrel hunter. Grew up with my grandpa doing that in Alabama, and Kentucky's like, man, there's a lot of squirrels here. I'm in October, I'm deer hunting. They're everywhere, and they're 5 feet away from me. And then you go, you as soon as you go out with a 22, it's like, well, they disappeared.
Yep,
every time.
Yeah.
And then that deer you've been hunting all year walks right by.
Dude, was it Friday? I think I went out, man. So there's a buck that I've had encounters with since this dude has had spots, like since I moved to Kentucky. I've only seen it twice when I was actually hunting for deer, but it was super young and had spots. But I've seen it just hiking, seen it trying to hunt turkeys. But I ended up kicking it up, man. So it's about 3.5-year-old now. massive, massive body. I'm actually kind of upset that I won't be here to hunt next season because I'm like, been watching that dude for 3 years, man. And I just kicked him up. I know exactly. He's kept the same pattern. He's been in the same area all 3 years, man.
Oh, I get that. I get
Oh.
that. I set up 20 yards too far this year on a deer I've been trying to kill.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. I get that.
Me, because I'm dumb, I would have reached out and shot at it anyways.
The problem is that it's where I set up. Like, I get in the thickest places possible, and it's like he's either coming here or I'm not. I'm just gonna watch him. You know, I don't have a shot at it. There's too many trees. You know? But that's Kentucky.
That 100% is Kentucky.
It's a lot of deer, and it's a challenging place to hunt.
Yeah,
just because of the cover.
Well, we wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't challenging.
That's what makes it fun.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Well, Scott, this flew, man. We're rolling up on an hour here, dude. That I love the more relaxed podcast, man. Makes me happy. Makes me sad season's over, but gets me pumped for
Yeah. It's a little bit of a lull after that season drops off. It's like, oh man, you know. But
yeah, man. Well, let's chat offline. I'm glad to make this connection, man. Thank you, Kerri, for putting us together.
Yeah, dude.
We'll get you out on a Western hunt, man. We'll see what we can do to make it happen. And hopefully there's some listeners who, heard your message about your future goals involving your passions with the outdoors, man. And either have some advice or suggestions or just want to connect, man. But I think that's a very noble cause, and I want to do everything I can to help support that.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. It's an honor just to be able to talk to people that have the same passion. And I've gone back and listened to a lot of your podcasts, and it's like, man, it's like I could sit down at a fire with you guys and just talk hunting. You know,
man. Hunting is even more invaluable when you have a community around you, man. And that's one of the things I love about it the most. And love meeting new guys in the same community with the same, appreciation for life, man. So, I appreciate you coming on, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. You got any closing thoughts for us before we round this one out?
Well, I think the only thought I would have is no matter if you're, going through a hardship or if you're just on a hunt where it's not working out, is there's got to be a don't quit factor, and taking it all in, and more times than not, it's that morning that you don't want to wake up.
Yeah, that's true.
That's going to be the morning that you kill.
Yeah.
And just, take care of everybody. I don't think we can get that message out enough. It's beneficial in every aspect, and always try to give. I'm real big about giving to the next generation, the one under me, and I'm looking forward to. I think the best way to close this is I'm looking forward to turkey hunting with Kerri. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, remember, I pee a lot and complain about my back hurting. So,
well, we just have to get you some good cover.
You got anything for us, man?
Yeah, man. If guys take nothing else from this, man, like it all boils down to, do you want it? If you can take nothing else, do you want it? And a positive mental attitude, man. It'll take you so many places.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well said, man. But yeah, appreciate it, Scott. Thanks for coming on, man. Listeners, as always, we appreciate the hell of you guys. If you want to connect with Scott, Scott, what's your Instagram handle?
I think I sent it to you. I might have to look it up because it's convoluted.
For the first 100 episodes I did, I always had to look up mine.
Right. It's Scott.Jernigan.73.
Perfect. We can link it in the show notes too, man. Hopefully some folks can connect with you. Yeah, listeners, appreciate the hell out of you guys. We'll talk to you next week.